Aaron, your collection is just amazing.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's still growing.
Yeah, I dream about having a collection like yours, my friend.
Well, I'm sure yours was before you sold it. Yeah.
All right, community. Welcome to another episode where we are ranking the top 10 songs. As you can see, we are now a quartet. Just be Chris and I, and last week we were joined by Aaron. This week we are joined by JC from the Flipside Vinyl Community. I am so happy to have JC here. He is a channel who has been such a supporter of mine over the last year. And I owe so much of the success recently of my channel to him. I've got Chris Profi, whose channel I just adore. He was one of the first channels the VC channels that I've subscribed to. If you have not checked Chris's channel out, it's Chris Profi, Musically Obsessed, one of the best channels on YouTube. Chris has such an extensive collection. He's got everything from Frank Sinatra to Black Sabbath to Anne Murray to Black Flag. And I always love him showing off his collection. We've got Aaron Mutha Alamere, who has, you can see the wall of vinyl behind him. Not only does he have classic vinyl, he's got bootlegs. And you can see him go through some of his collection on his Tipsy Tuesday YouTube shows that he has every Tuesday. I always look forward and check in with him. It's like sitting in Aaron's living room with him, just sitting in his room, watching him go through his vinyl. He's always got some classic tunes playing in the background, and it's just a great time for everyone to check him out. So we are today talking about our Black Sabbath top 10, if you couldn't already gather from the shirts that some of us are wearing. And the first question that I always ask to our panelists is, what got you into Black Sabbath? What was your first experience with Black Sabbath? How old were you? And what was it that drew you to Black Sabbath? And unfortunately, I botched take one of this video. I interrupted JC, which I feel really bad about, but I'm going to start with JC again. JC, what was your first experience with Black Sabbath?
Thanks, man. So early 80s, between 1980 and 1984 is when I really started to get into music. My father had a huge record collection, but my father, like myself, likes all different genres of music. And I remember hearing Iron Man. I was driving with my father. I asked him, who is this? And he was like, it's Black Sabbath. I associated with the comic book because I read comic books. And so I assumed he was thinking about the comic character. So as I started to get a record collection, I asked my father for some Black Sabbath, and he ordered We Sold Our Souls to Rock and Roll from Columbia House for me, which is a great compilation. As you guys probably know, the Black Sabbath songs can be really long. These are more like the radio versions. Which is cool for a young kid. You know, like as I grew up and grew older, I started to get all the catalog. I remember thinking that Ozzy Osbourne was the most evil person in the world. Like in school, we had the group of kids that could listen to Ozzy and the group of kids that couldn't listen to Ozzy. That's how notorious he was. So that being said, in the 80s, it was the time of slasher flicks and horror movies. So for a young kid, 10 years old, I was obsessed with all of that. So the more dark it seemed, the more I gravitated towards it. And that's kind of really what sent me down that road of Black Sabbath.
Excellent. Yeah, no, I had a similar experience. I remember being in junior high, and there were the kids that had the cool metal t-shirts. And then there were the kids like me who had like the dorky, generic t-shirts or whatever, and I was like, oh god, I wish I could be in that fraternity of kids who had the Ozzy t-shirts and the Black Sabbath, and but yeah, I totally relate to that. Chris, what got you into Black Sabbath?
Well, Bon Jovi was my gateway into Sabbath. I was listening to, like I was telling Aaron before, at that time I was listening to, one of my first records was Cyndi Lauper, She's So Unusual. And then I got Huey Lewis Sports. And then I heard Bon Jovi, Slippery When Wet. And I'm like, all right, well, there's some heavier stuff out there. I'm like, I think I need something heavier. So I remember I went to this, it was almost like a BJ's or Sam's Club back in the day when I was like 13, 14. And they sold records there. And I saw Black Sabbath Sabotage and Metallica Ride the Lightning. and I bought those 2 records on the same day. And I tell you what, I'm not going to talk about the Metallica album because we're not talking about Metallica. But when I heard Sabotage, I was just blown away. And needless to say, this is my favorite Black Sabbath album. So, yeah, and like I said, going from Bon Jovi to Black Sabbath was like, whoa, hello. But then I knew, and then that springboarded me into even heavier stuff. So, the Bon Jovi was the gateway to Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath was the gateway to like Slayer and Testament and Anthrax and all that kind of stuff. So, yep, about 13, 14 years old.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Aaron, how about you? Oh, I think Aaron might have frozen up on us. I thought he was permanently looking down, but oh, there you go. Okay, Aaron, what got you into Sabbath?
Well, I always knew Sabbath a little bit because my dad, he would play a little Sabbath here or there. And then when I was about 13 or 14, I got a bunch of money for like $100 for Christmas. So the first thing I did was ran to the record store. And it was in the mall at that time. And I bought like 10 cassettes. And one of the ones I bought was this because I knew a couple songs off it and I really wanted to hear more. And it just launched me into all of it. I got into all of it after that. So that was Paranoid. But I knew quite a few songs before that, just hearing them on the radio and from family and friends and stuff. But that's what really got me into them was Paranoid.
Yeah, that was probably the gateway for a lot of people, actually, that album, because you got the hits Iron Man and Paranoid, which most people who maybe have never heard any other Sabbath song or Sabbath album were probably familiar with. I grew up in a very religious family, and so like anything to do with Satan or the devil or anything that even suggested there was a demonic influence was totally off limits. I mean, I grew up listening to like the Beatles, and I think Boston was probably the heaviest that I was allowed to get into. And then it wasn't until like I was actually, a little bit older, and my brother, he bought this CD, the same one that you showed, this album, We Sold Our Souls for Rock and Roll. And he's like, you got to listen to this. And I remember listening to it and like being blown away, like, oh my God, this is the greatest album ever. And from there, I just started like, I started buying up all their studio albums, Paranoid, and then getting into the first album, and then Masters of Reality and all that. So I got into Sabbath, I think, later than most people probably did. But ever since then, I've just been a huge Sabbath fan. So I'm excited to see our list here because I know we all come from a different perspective. And, Chris has already thrown the cards on the table that Sabotage is his favorite. I expect we're going to see.
I have nothing to hide.
Yeah, we might see a disproportionate number of tracks on that album. So, and I see Aaron's got his Ozzy shirt on. So if that's any indication, we might be seeing a little more from the Ozzy era. But let's start with our honorable mentions. And JC, you're a little bit new to our forum, but we always pick 5 honorable mentions that we wish we could have included in our top 10, but just were not able to. So this gives us a little space to sneak in those songs that are not quite top 10, but we still love so much. So what do you have for us?
Okay, so the number 5 was very difficult. Like I went back and forth 10 times today. I'm gonna go with Sweet Leaf from Master of Reality, which is just an amazing song. So to have that song, your number 15 song, just shows you what a just fantastic catalog these people have. Number 14 is Neon Nights, which I love Neon Nights, and it would have been higher, but my one issue with it is Dio, like it starts off like your stereotypical love song. I think the line, I wrote it down, is I can't remember when we came this close to love before. Now I'm a hopeless romantic. I love love songs. But then he starts talking about circles and rings and dragons and kings, and he loses me. I'm like, why does it always have to come back to dragons? Like, always has to be dragons with this guy. Like, that song would have been in my top 5 if he didn't bring up the dragons. Number 13 is the longest song title in the history of man. Wasp, Behind the Walls of Sleep, basically NIB. I love that song. Absolutely love it. And NIB on its own is a stone cold masterpiece, in my opinion. Number 11 would be Into the Void, another great one. And number 10 would be Snowblind. Those are my honorable mentions. It was so hard not to put those in the top 10.
Excellent. Yeah, no, it's funny because Behind the Wall of Sleep, et cetera, was almost on my list. I mean, I was like, oh, it tells me that I didn't include that in my list, but I love that song. I love how one just kind of segues into the other. That's such a great first side of an album, and great pick, absolutely. Chris, what about your honorable mentions?
All right, well, these aren't in any sort of order, as I always do, but I'm going The Shining off of The Eternal Idol with Tony Martin. I just love that freaking song, and this album is underrated. I really like this album. 1987. If you've never heard The Eternal Idol, you must get it. The Shining, the title track is killer. Off of Sabotage, I'm going with Megalomania. It's close to 10 minutes long, and about at the 3-minute mark, this killer heavy guitar riff comes in, and it just continues from there. So, yeah, don't be thrown off by the cover. Megalomania kicks ass. Off of Mob Rules, Sign of the Southern Cross. I was just listening to that today. That song just builds and builds and builds. Dio is just, I don't know. Maybe he's talking about dragons. Maybe he's talking about rainbows. Whatever. It's freaking good. Technical Ecstasy, which is another one of my favorite albums by them. Rock and Roll Doctor. Honorable mention. And Children of the Grave off of Master of Reality. So those are my 5. I mean, here's the thing, like JC is mentioning some great songs. I mentioned what I think are some great songs. Like, it's amazing that those are our honorable mentions. So it's going to be interesting to see where we go in the top 10 now.
Well, I love that you have Technical Ecstasy on there, because for me, that's almost like the Unmasked of the Black Sabbath catalog. You know, everybody's afraid to give that album any kind of props, but it's really not a terrible album. There's some great stuff on there.
Yeah, I think the only weak track on here is It's All Right, which is the Bill Ward song. And again, it's not a bad song. It's just that it doesn't really fit in with the mood of the album.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is a top 3 Sabbath album for me.
All right, Aaron.
So my I had 21, but I'll my 15. My number 15 was from this, Fairies Wear Boots. Love that song. It's just a classic. It was hard not to put that on mine. And at number 14, I have from Born Again, Disturbing the Priest. One of the heaviest songs. Love Disturbing the Priest. It's just, it's pretty evil sounding. Really great one. And at number 13, I believe this is the same as Chris, Children of the Grave.
Yeah.
Love that song. Amazing. At number 12, and I went back and forth on this one, and it's Wheels of Confusion from Black Sabbath 4. That is just an epic, and it's just a really killer song, that killer riff, and then at the end of it, the instrumental stuff at the end just kills me. I love it. Love that instrumental at the end. It's a whole different song almost. I love that. And then my number 11 that just barely didn't make it, and I'll probably get some hate for this, the title song, Black Sabbath.
Love it.
It's an amazing song, and it just barely missed my list. Black Sabbath. It might be some of your number ones even. I don't know. That's great.
It's up there.
So
it's just real. It's real moody, you know, like a great way to kick off your career with that, where you got like the bells. It's just such an ominous track, and I love the story that I love them to tell is the fact that when they were recording that album, like it one of their albums, they were in a studio and like they saw, like, I think that might have been the inspiration for that track was they were in a studio recording all this dark material and they saw like an apparition or something when they were recording, and it just freaked them out. And I'd always heard that that was kind of the story behind that track. But my honorable mentions, my first one, I'm going to go with Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, the title track from their 5th album. Always loved that. It's a killer riff, even though they were just starting to get into a lot of substance abuse. Well, maybe not starting to get into, but, you know, certainly they were getting into the depths of their substance use during the recording of that album. When Tony Iommi came up with that riff, I know they said, oh, you know, we're back. We've been toiling in the studio for a while, but that track was kind of the catalyst for all the great music on that album that followed. And that's going to be another track I'm going to pull off that album. My second honorable mention is Spiral Architect. Great song. On there, I love that. Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath is probably my favorite Black Sabbath album, if I had to pick one. So both those tracks, I just love to death. Number 3, I'm going to go with Master of Insanity off of the Dehumanizer album. Always love that. It reminds me a lot. The rhythm is a lot like the Wanton song from Physical Graffiti. Parts of that remind me a lot of that song, but I think it's a great Dio vocal. I love that song. Number 4, I'm going to go, my 4th honorable mention is I'm going to go with Dirty Women, the last track off Technical Ecstasy. I like that one a lot. I think that's a great track on an underrated album. And then 5, I got to go with the title track from Heaven and Hell. Always love that. That might have been one of the first Black Sabbath songs I heard on the radio, and it still holds up today. I love that song a lot. So that's we've all covered our honorable mentions, and so now we're gonna roll up our sleeves and get into our top 10 list. And so we are gonna just start with our number 10. We'll go around, everyone will say their number 10 pick. So we'll start with you, JC, again. Your number 10 Sabbath pick.
My number 10 is going to be Sign of the Southern Cross. And Chris, you're absolutely right. This is a fantastic song. And I know that there are people that have allegiances to Ozzy and people have allegiances to Dio. But even if you're just a stone cold Ozzy fan out there, go listen to that song. I think it's one of Dio's best vocal performances. And if you guys think about this, from 1980 to 1984, Dio released 4 albums, 2 with Black Sabbath, 2 solo, 2 were platinum, 2 were gold. I mean, that was, and he had all those albums with Rainbow before, you could even add. But if you look at those 4 years to have such an amazing body of work, and to me, Sign of the Southern Cross is one of the best songs on any of those albums. It's just fabulous.
No, great.
Agreed.
All right, number 10, Chris.
Off of Never Say Die, I'm going with Johnny Blade. Really, really like this song. And this is an album that, you know, a lot of some Sabbath fans have never heard before. And I know people just getting into Sabbath probably don't even know this record. But, you know, it was the last one with Ozzy, but I think it's really underrated. It's a heavy album. They do some sort of strange, like, jazz stuff, too, in the song Air Dance. But Johnny Blade is such a great song, and there's this middle section where it just breaks into this like groove, like a heavy groove. And, you know, even though it was Ozzy's last album, I think his vocal performance on at least Johnny Blade is great. So that's my number 10.
Very bold pick. I like it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, Never Say Die is another one of my favorite albums by them.
I love the album artwork. I think that Never Say Die album artwork is killer. I love looking at it. I think it's just so cool.
Yeah.
T-shirt. Yeah. All right, Aaron. Number 10.
So, and number 10 from Heaven and Hell is Lady Evil.
Great song.
Yeah, love that. It just sticks in your head. Love the riffs. Dio. I like Ozzy a lot, but actually I'm a bigger Dio fan than Ozzy. So even though I have an Ozzy shirt on, I don't have a Dio shirt anymore. But yeah, it's Lady Evil. I just love it. One of my favorites. Number 10.
Great. Well, my number 10 is one that has already been mentioned. I'm going with Disturbing the Priest. Born Again. Love that. That is such, the thing that I love about it is how is it possible that Ian Gillan in that song sounds more demonic than not only Ronnie James Dio, but Ozzy Osbourne? Like, I don't know what the hell he's channeling on that album, but he's screeching and howling, and he sounds like a man possessed on that album. And nowhere better than that particular track. That track gives me the chills. Like, I will not listen to that track in the dark. It is so spooky, yet it's so effective. Tony Iommi with that riff, like, where the hell did he get that riff? It's such an unusual riff or note combination. It's so eerie. You've got Ian Gillan just howling away on that track. You've got, it almost sounds like monks chanting or something in that track. It just freaks me the hell out, but that's one of the reasons why I love it. And it's always, the track when I think like, oh my God, what is like the most evil sounding Black Sabbath track? I always think about that one. So
can I say something about that riff?
Yeah.
Reminds me of Paradise City, Guns N' Roses. Listen to the riff again in Disturbing the Priest. It's almost like GNR ripped it off.
Yeah, you're so right. That's cool.
And I don't know if there's history behind that or what, but it just always reminded me of that.
Yeah, no, you're right. I hadn't thought about that, but absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, we are on to number 9. JC, what do you got?
All right, so my number 9 is off Sabotage, and it's going to be Symptom of the Universe. I feel like Bill Ward really shines on that song. It's some of his best drumming. And it's a real heavy song, and I think that when you listen to these early Sabbath songs, you can see the influence they had on all the bands that I grew to love in the 80s, like Metallica and Megadeth and those type of bands. And I think that song, you could see how many bands ripped off Black Sabbath with just that song. It's just a killer song, and it's one of my favorites off that album.
No question.
Great one.
Always. That I totally I get why Chris loves that album, and that for me is definitely, like, I gotta say top 3 for sure. And it's not in most people's conversation about like their favorite Sabbath albums, but like how can you not consider that like definitely in your top 3? I love that album for sure. I'm not crazy about the artwork, but everything else about that album I love.
Yeah.
All right, number 9, Chris.
I just want to say too, JC, you're right about that riff and Symptom of the Universe. Every freaking metal band ripped that riff off.
Yep, totally.
Yeah. All right, so my number 9 is off of Born Again. I'm going with the title track. It's another journey. Ian Gillan does some ungodly screams in this song. And like you were saying, Jeff, it's almost like Ian Gillan had something to prove. He's like, yeah, I'm coming from Deep Purple, but you know what? Sabbath is heavier than Deep Purple, and I can sing heavier. I can be heavy. And he had a look too. I mean, his hair was long at this time. He commanded the stage. And the title track off this album is just amazing. The production of this album is so muddy and dark. But it adds to the mysterious nature of it. And every time I listen to this album, it's almost like I have to wrap my head around it again, because it's just such a confusing record, because it's like, it says Black Sabbath, but Ian Gillan singing, and you hear these screams and this muddy production and this cover that I happen to like, but I don't know. It's just a very mysterious album, but I like it. So I'm going with Born Again for number 9.
Yeah, no argument there. That is fantastic album, fantastic track. Well, the funny story about that is, Ian Gillan went out drinking with, Tony Iommi and Geezer Butler, and they were having a good time. And this was before he joined the band. And he woke up the next morning all hungover, the story goes anyway. And his manager told him, oh, by the way, you just joined Black Sabbath. And
yeah.
I did what?
Hello.
And, he hung around for an album and a tour, but I think it's just such a great combination. It makes total sense. And I think he fits right in with Sabbath and their sound, and he has never sounded like he does on that album. So that's a great pick. Okay, Aaron.
This is a little bit strange, but
it's going to be like Deep Purple all over again.
Yeah. This is not the same song. This is Trashed. The lead off track on this. It's just a pulsating driving song. It reminds me almost of Deep Purple. It's almost like a Highway Star or Speed King, and it just drives and drives. And the lyrics about drinking tequila, and it's just listening to all this stuff back again. I realized how much I love this record. Because preparing for this video, I listened to all this stuff again, and I was like trying to pick out, and the ones that I just, I want to hear that again. I want to hear it again. Trash was just a great one. Love it. Love the lyrics. Love his singing, and just the energy of that song. I really love. So
I was just looking through the liner notes in the CD, and it reminded me. This was the tour where they had the Stonehenge.
Infamous Stonehenge.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So I don't know. Do you like the cover, Aaron?
Oh yeah, I do.
I do too,
I'm one of the people. Yeah, it's just so weird that I like it. I like strange stuff. So
I love it too.
You know how I do those videos where I do like amazing and awful covers by the same band? I've gotten 4 requests for Sabbath, and it's so hard because I know I personally like that cover. I don't know which one I like the least. That's the
Sabotage.
Tough part. I mean, Sabotage is pretty awful. But I'm not a huge fan of Technical Ecstasy, the cover. What's that?
It's a little weird. Sorry.
It's a little weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like a new wave band or something you'd expect.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting to see it when I'm flipping through Sabbath records, but I guess not awful.
It's robots making love. That's what it is.
It is.
Yeah.
All right.
Technical Ecstasy.
All right. My number 9, I'm going to go to the Heaven and Hell album. It's a song that was already mentioned, Lady Evil. You can dance to that song. You put that Lady Evil on and you can totally dance to Lady Evil. It's got a great groove. It's got a great Ronnie James Dio vocal on it. And I love the heck out of that song. And that is my number 9 with no apologies.
Nice.
Great.
We're on.
All right. Our number 8, JC.
Wheels of Confusion off Volume 4. Just a fantastic song. I think someone already mentioned it, right? But just a great, great song. Starting off an album. I love when a band will start off an album with just like absolute killer track. And yeah, it sets the mood for this album. The first 4 Black Sabbath albums, I really don't feel have a bad song, to be completely honest with you.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's a great one. Great album.
That's a lot of people's favorite Sabbath album.
It's awesome. I don't know which my favorite is. Maybe Master of Reality. If you're listening to it like as one complete album, this might be my favorite. But if you said which one has the most amount of my favorite songs, it'd probably be something completely different. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. My number 8 is a song that's really grown on me even over the last, few years. It was a song that I always liked, but I think it's really become a favorite of mine, and it's The Wizard off the first album. I love the harmonica. I think isn't it the only song with a harmonica in the Sabbath catalog?
I don't know another.
Yeah. I don't know. And the band is just firing on all cylinders. It's like they just sound really good, and it's a fun song, and it's an energetic, and I just love the dynamic of the harmonica in there. So yeah, it's just really become a favorite of mine.
Yeah, wasn't their name Earth before they became
blues band? Yep.
Sounds like that was like a track that they might have performed back in their blues rock days or whatever. You can definitely see the roots of Black Sabbath in that song. But yeah, I agree. I love that too. That was one of the songs that stood out for me on the We Sold Our Souls for Rock and Roll compilation. But I love the hell out of that track.
And you know what song it is right when you hear it because it opens up with that screaming harmonica. And is that Ozzy playing it? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So there you go.
All right. Aaron.
Right, good. So this is a kind of a strange one for my number 8. It's from the from Black Sabbath, but it's Evil Woman, the cover song. I just love that dirty guitar riff, and it just it kills me, the guitar riff. It just and the Ozzy singing is so good on it, and it just has that groove, and just I love groove songs. So Evil Woman, even though it's a cover, it's my 8th favorite.
ELO
gotta hear
it too.
It's a Sabbath song to me.
Yeah, you got to hear the version, the original version by Crow. It's really good too.
I bet.
And
it
then
is.
ELO covered it too, also. But
Oh, okay.
I know. But all right, everybody is stealing my thunder. My number 8 is Sign of the Southern Cross. I mean, you know, how can you argue with that? We've already talked about it, so I won't belabor the point. But you know, I think it's one of my favorite Ronnie James Dio era Black Sabbath songs. It's just fantastic. It just really shows, you know, how much he rejuvenated Black Sabbath when he joined, and what a debt Black Sabbath owes him being in the band, because that's just a fantastic track, and I really like that album. You know, people say, well, Heaven or Hell or Mob Rules, but for me, it's really a toss-up. I like both of them equally, but I really love that track a lot. All right, we're on to number 7 now.
So mine is also from Ronnie James Dio era, and that's going to be Heaven and Hell. And the funny thing is, Jeff, I was thinking about what I think we were talking about the other day on YouTube about how albums were so long. I wonder if back then in 80 and 81, when those 2 albums came out, Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules, if we had been in the CD age, they would have made it one giant long album and excluded a few tracks. Luckily, that didn't happen, and we got 2 amazing albums. And to me, Heaven and Hell, like you said, when I think about my favorites, the significance of that song, right? It rejuvenated Black Sabbath. It really did. And, you know, Ronnie James Dio went to another level, obviously, with that song, I feel like. So the significance, just the brilliance of it, the riff, everything about that song to me is perfection, as all of these top 10 are. They're just some of the greatest metal songs of all time. So Heaven and Hell, that's my number 7.
Yep, no question. Yeah, I wish I could have ranked that one higher. I almost regret that I didn't, because, like I said earlier, that was one of my first memories of Sabbath being on the radio. Was just, and when it's just that dun, 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 dun,
Yeah.
You got Ronnie James Dio. Sing us a song. I'm not a singer, but it's like, how can you not get down with that song? It's like, yes. Yeah, totally. All right, Chris, your number 7.
I was just saying we could stop the video and you could change your list. And we could...
Yeah, you mind if I go through a couple revisions? We'll take a time out, and I'm gonna.
No, I'm just kidding. Number 7 for me is another Dio song, but this is gonna be, it's kind of a deep cut. I'm going off of Mob Rules, and I'm gonna go with the song "Country Girl."
Oh yeah,
just
great
got
one.
a killer riff, and Dio comes in, fell in love with a country girl. It's just a great freaking song, and Dio's got the snarling vocal in it. And I don't know. I mean, I hear what you guys are saying. I love Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules, but I think I like Mob Rules a little bit better than Heaven and Hell. I don't know what it is about it. I don't know. I just think it's a little bit heavier. But yeah, Country Girl is a killer song.
It is a fantastic song, man. You can't go wrong with either one of those albums.
No, you can't. Yeah, and again, I love Heaven and Hell too. But for whatever reason, I just pulled this album more than Heaven and Hell.
Is there a genre called hillbilly metal? Because I feel like, you know, that song.
There is actually. Anne Murray made a hillbilly.
Yeah, I can't wait for that video.
All right, Aaron.
Don't knock Anne Murray. Do not knock Anne Murray.
I will definitely do a top 10 Frank Sinatra. I don't know enough Anne Murray to do a top 10, but I could do a Frank Sinatra.
Yeah, I jump in on that with you.
Yeah,
I'll do a top 2 of Anne Murray.
I'll get my father in here. He could do top 10 of Anne Murray.
All right, Aaron, you're number 7.
It's been mentioned Sign of the Southern Cross.
Nice.
So, you guys have already said everything about that song. Just amazing Dio vocals and just a great song. So you guys have already said so much about it. I'll let that one go. So Sign of the Southern Cross, number 7 for me.
My number 7, I'm going to go back to my favorite album. I'm going to go with Looking For Today. That. And my favorite part of this track, I could listen to it over and over, is that end part where Ozzy's just going, that whole hook, the looking for today. I mean, he just like goes over, and it's just like, I don't know. For me, it's so catchy. I love that it just goes on. It could go on like 5 minutes longer. I think it's just it's a great riff. It's a great hook. Great album. I love that track. It's not very long. It's 5 minutes long, but I think about 2 minutes of that is just Ozzy repeating kind of that chorus, looking for today. But it's just an earworm. I love it. It's always, for me, been one of the standout tracks on this album, and I love it to death.
Yeah, and along those lines, I just want to say something about this is about metal in the 70s. That's what I loved about it, is that they weren't pigeonholed into a certain sound. Like some songs had a piano in them, or even Judas Priest did some ballads, and they played with jazz and things like that, and blues, and even like early Priest was almost like folk metal, if that's even like a genre. But I think that was cool. Like, it was still this experimental time. It's like, what is this new sound and what can we do with it? And that's where you get a song like Looking For Today. And Looking For Today has a lot of pop elements in it, like you were just saying.
Well, it shows Ozzy's a good singer. Like,
yeah.
Oh, he bit the head off a bat. Oh, he's a clown, whatever. He, snorts ants off. I mean, there's all these, things that people knock Ozzy for. But at the end of the day, I mean, he was a damn talented singer. And I think that track alone just shows how well, and I know, the big difference between him and, say, Ronnie James Dio is, Ozzy liked to sing the riff rather than across the riff. So with like Iron Man, he was singing right along with the riff, but he was a great singer. He was a great showman. He definitely had personality and he had character. And I think it definitely shined through on that track. But I love Ozzy to death. Say what you will about his idiosyncrasies, but at the end of the day, damn good. He still is a damn good singer, but and
he has a tremendous sense of melody. And I think that's the thing about Ozzy that is so underrated. You have this heavy, dark music, and his melodies are beautiful. And that's the contrast to Black Sabbath. You have the dark and you have the light. And Ozzy fit it perfectly, I think, in the 70s. So great choice, Jeff.
Yeah, and to back you up, JC, with what you were just saying, just to prove that, Lemmy went to Ozzy for co-writing. I think Ozzy wrote, Lemmy wrote for Ozzy. That's what I'm thinking of. Because didn't Lemmy write, Going Home or Coming Home?
Yeah, Mama Coming Home. Yeah.
Did Lemmy write that for Ozzy?
They wrote it together. So
okay,
they wrote 3 songs on that album together, I think.
Yeah, so that's what I was thinking. It's like, if Ozzy didn't have this knack for melody, like you were just saying, I mean, Lemmy wouldn't have wanted anything to do with writing for Ozzy. You know what I mean? But Ozzy, like you said, Ozzy had a knack for writing a catchy song.
And he was a big Beatle fan too. So I think he got a sense of melody because he was a huge Beatles fan. And I think that carried over into the songs that he did with Sabbath. So, all right, we're on to our number 6, JC.
My number 6 has been said multiple times, but it's Disturbing the Priest. My favorite song off that album is just fabulous. I don't need to say anymore.
Awesome. I'm glad we're all in agreement. All right, Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris Prophy, and I like albums that nobody else likes. Off of Technical Ecstasy. My number 6 is Backstreet Kids. It opens up the album, killer heavy riff, and I just love the part where it's Ozzy, like you were saying, Jeff, Ozzy singing along with the melody. He's like, nobody I know will ever take this rock and roll away from me. It's just like a cool little earworm thing. And I don't know. It's just a great way to open the album. And I love this album. So Backstreet Kids, number 6. Sorry, I was just singing. Apologize.
Oh,
We love it, dude. You have the best voice.
Yeah, you love that album so much because great one.
Probably why I lost 4 subscribers today.
Are we gonna find out that you're just into robot sex? It has nothing to do with the album.
Yeah, I'm into robot sex and furries. So.
This is awesome.
All right, there. My subscriber count just went down.
We're taking this to a new level today.
I'll be at $8.99 tomorrow.
All right, Aaron.
Oh, he froze again.
There he goes. He's back.
I think he's looking at his bootlegs.
So my number 6 is the love song of Satan. NIB. NIB is my number 6, and it's written from the first person point of view of Satan and him falling in love and changing because of it. And I always really like that. And it's kind of interesting where the name NIB came from. It was from Bill Ward's beard called a nib. So then they just put the initials in there to fool people. But yeah, it's I just love that song, and it just has a eerie quality to it that I love, and the killer bass in it. So NIB is my number 6.
For Nativity in Black.
People thought that, but it was actually about Bill Ward's beard.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I heard that too, but you're right. Yeah.
You know what ruined that song for me was when Glenn Danzig covered it on his latest. Did he cover on Skeletons? I want to say.
Oh yeah, that's a rough one, man.
Dude, it's rough, man. And then I'm like, I don't know if I can look at this song the same way anymore. It's a good song though.
For my number 6, I'm going to go out for Paranoid Hand of Doom. Love that track. I love how it's just kind of that like bass riff, and it's a beautiful example of light and then heavy. You got that do 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 do, and it's just like so light. You got just a little bit of light drumming, and then it just like kicks off, and then it gets heavy, and then it's soft again. Just that bass riff, and then it like kicks up. I just love the soft and then the heavy and then the soft and heavy. I think it's a great groove. Always love that track. It's always been a highlight for me off Paranoid, and that's my pick.
Danzig covered that one too on Danzig 5. Black As the Devil.
He did.
Yep.
I saw Danzig on that tour, and the 4th tour and the 3rd tour.
Okay.
Yeah.
I never did, so.
Oh my God. Yeah, you don't want to see him now. You want to go back in time.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
All right, we're now the heat is on. We're in our top 5. This is where it really counts.
All right. Well, this one I don't know if anyone else is going to have this one, but to me, I'll explain why I have it. So it's off number 4, and it's going to be Changes. And to me, the reason why I love this song, honestly, is like I'm more of a fan of lyrics than music, believe it or not, even though I love heavy metal and jazz. I absolutely am in love with lyrics. And to me, I can really resonate with this song, and I could back in the day. I just remember the first time I had my heart broken, and I'm sitting there listening to the song, thinking I'm no longer this person that I was, right? Every time someone enters or leaves your life, or you have a significant change, you change as a person, right? And so to me, that song really resonated at a very young age. So I always love that song, Changes. And I think that lyrically, it's just one of the best songs. So Changes, that's my number, wherever it was, 5.
You know what I love about that song, JC?
What?
Mellotron.
Yeah.
Love the Mellotron. It's used so effectively on that. I love that track, but it's just you're right. And people laugh. It's like, oh my God, Ozzy singing a light ballad kind of a track, but he does it so effectively. And again, Ozzy's a great singer, and he can do a gentle kind of a ballad like that. And I love the arrangement on that song. It is such a classic. Otherwise, it wouldn't be on all their greatest hits.
And you really believe him when he's singing it, like you can feel. That's the great thing about Ozzy. I feel like he delivers a vocal performance where it's so soulful. You feel like this is someone that is really sang his pain. It's like Paul McCartney when he sings She No Longer Needs You. And you're like, want to slit your wrist and jump in the bathtub because you're like, oh my God, I've never heard something so depressing. But it's one of those songs where you really believe that this person's going through this hardship. And I love it.
Yeah, and it's rare among Sabbath songs because it's a love song, but it's not a love song to weed or the devil. So
yeah, exactly.
in that respect, yeah. All right, Chris.
All right, my number 5 is the first song off of Sabotage, Hole in the Sky. Just have always really liked the song. Aggressive vocals by Ozzy. I love the guitar tone on this album as well. Hole in the Sky, just a great way to open the album, and it's just always been a favorite of mine.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, I love that album. And
yeah,
every time you bring that up, it's like, oh God, yeah, I love that track too. Oh, I love that song.
Well, what I like about the album is that, like you were saying, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, they started to experiment with their sound. They got a little bit more proggy. They started to kind of branch out from the doom a little bit. I think in Sabotage, it came to a head. Like they really were getting proggy on that album. They were experimenting with different sounds. The songs were a little bit longer. The subject matter, I know they have a song on here called The Writ, which was about some legal issues that they had. And so, yeah, I think it's their most creative album, I would say.
Well, and that was one of the last Sabbath albums that I bought just because I'd always heard like, oh, that album's weird. That album, is sort of like one of the black sheep of their catalog. And I got it and I listened to it. I'm like, what are you talking about? This album kicks ass. This album is great. But yeah, no, I love it. Aaron, your number 5?
This is pretty weird. From Sabotage.
Yeah.
Megalomania. The Amazing Megalomania. It's just huge, long, great song with all those changes, and it has that riff. It's always about the riffs. Tony Iommi and his riffs, man. I just love them. And Megalomania. You were talking about it earlier, and I was trying to be quiet, but
that was an honorable mention of mine.
Yeah. So Megalomania is my number 5. 4 or 5? Where are we? 5. Yeah,
5.
I think my favorite, I don't know, I really dig that part of the song. It just shows you how Black Sabbath was experimenting when he does that obsessed. Yeah. Like it just like goes on, almost like Us and Them from Pink Floyd, where it's got like the echo. And it's like, I love that track. I'm going to go to volume 4 for my number 5 pick, Supernaut. Love that track. Great riff. Love everything about it. Great Ozzy vocal. Great groove on it. Just love everything about it. It's always been one of the standout tracks on that album for me, and I love it to death. So
nice.
Great one.
My number 4 is going to be off Paranoid, and it's Planet Caravan. Absolutely love this song. So what I love about this song is everybody needs to go listen to this song on vinyl. They do such a great job of the separation of the congos that Bill Ward is playing that you can feel them like traveling around the room. It's very kind of psychedelic. It's just an acoustic guitar. There's actually one of the only Sabbath songs I think to have a flute. They do a weird vocal effect on Ozzy. And then to end the song, Tony Iommi ends with like a jazz solo. But it's a very trippy song, but it's about like a as they described it, like a romantic weekend floating through space or something. So they were real high when they wrote this song, but it is a masterpiece and it just sounds incredible. If you go listen to this on vinyl, it just blew me away. And I almost wanted to pick up the needle and bring it back and just listen to it again, just that one track. So Planet Caravan, that's my number 4.
Well, my favorite songs off that album were not the hits. It's not War Pigs. It's not Iron Man. It's not Paranoid. It's tracks like Planet Caravan, Hand of Doom, those tracks that people aren't as familiar with because I think they're brilliant. And I think they were early enough in their career that they could stretch out. They had some of the hippie 60s, the trippy psychedelic stuff still carrying over into their 70s work. And then they were also blazing a path in the future with some of the material also that they were coming up with at that time. So I love that pick. Absolutely.
It's such a great song.
It is.
Awesome.
Amazing.
All right, my number 4 is got to be one of the heaviest, freaking doomiest riffs. One of you mentioned it, Into the Void off of Master of Reality. I just love it. It just comes in with that. It's just a heavy freaking riff. And then I have to pull out the lyrics here. Rockets edging, burning fuel so fast, up into the night sky they blast. Through the universe, the engines whine. Could it be the end of man and time? It's just got that, just great lyrics to go along with it as well. So, yeah, this is a heavy, heavy song. Into the Void.
Love it. That was on my honorable mentions, and it's an amazing song.
And it ends the album. So it's like, all right, the song's over, and then you want to go back to Sweet Leaf, you know? So, yeah, great song.
All right. Aaron.
Going for Hand of Doom, number 4.
Nice.
Like you said before, just how it had that mellow, and then it gets really heavy. And just one of the heavy parts are some of the heavy stuff they did. And then it's got that nice mellow where it goes back and forth. And it's just a great song. And so, yeah, I agree. The singles are my least favorites on here, probably just because I've heard them so much. And the other ones are just a little more creative, I think. But Hand of Doom.
Not Rat Salad?
What?
Do you like Rat Salad?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
My number 4 is going to be the title track off Black Sabbath. Just such a mood setter. I love the chiming bells, like the gong. It sets the stage. It's just bombastic, and then it quiets down so you can have Ozzy's vocal, and just such an eerie topic. And when he's screaming, you can almost feel like, there's a demon after me, and oh God, please help me. I mean, you totally buy into the fact he is selling that song, and you totally believe, like, the terror in his voice is just so real and so palpable. I've always loved that track, and I love, the rain at the beginning of it, almost kind of like Elton John's Funeral for a Friend. And then you got the gong, and then it kicks into that riff. It's just so great. I've always loved that track. So that's my number 4.
Awesome. My number 3 is going to be Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, off Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. I feel like this song invented thrash metal. Anthrax actually covered this song. It's just got such a killer riff. And it's funny because when I was going through this, I didn't even think it was going to make my top 10. And then I was like, I just instantly, as soon as I heard it, remembered how much I loved it as a kid, how much I listened to it as a kid. And yeah, I fell in love with it all again. So Sabbath Bloody Sabbath.
Dude, JC, we are brothers, because my number 3 is Sabbath Bloody Sabbath too. And in my notes here, I wrote down Anthrax's cover as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. It wasn't going to make mine, and then I'm like, I got to put Sabbath Bloody Sabbath in there. That riff is just amazing.
All right, Aaron.
What you gonna be, brother? Zero the Hero, number 3.
Nice.
I just love this record. Can't get away from it. Dylan. Just that song, I think, is one of the best Sabbath songs. Obviously, it's my number 3. It's another one of those just driving songs that just keep going and going. And the lyrics, I love the lyrics. Tony Iommi's guitar is killer in it, of course. Killer drumming. I just love it. Zero the Hero. Probably not a very popular pick, but that's my number 3.
It's a great song.
My number 3, going to Master of Reality. It's one that we've already covered. Into the Void. Love that. You can definitely hear a lot of Soundgarden, with the tuning down. And I know Tony Iommi, he had a industrial accident where he had the tip of his finger chopped off. And that's one of the reasons why his guitar was tuned so low, but never to greater effect, for me anyway, than Into the Void. I just love the riff on that. You can see everything, that came after it. So many not only, you know, metal bands, but grunge bands were influenced by that track alone. Just fantastic. I love it to death. And that's my number 3.
And to go along with what you're saying, Jeff, that's the cool thing about Sabbath is I think they cross a lot of genres, like punk guys who don't really admit they like metal say they like Sabbath. And of course, metal guys like Sabbath. But, you know, I even watch people on the VC that you wouldn't think like heavy metal, but they go, the one metal band I like is Black Sabbath. So they just have a knack for getting people to dig their music, even if they wouldn't be normally into that kind of stuff. There was just something about them that appealed to all different types of people.
And Chris, I think that you hit the nail on the head there. And if you think about it, you think about the amazing bands of the 70s, like Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin. Black Sabbath should be right there. They influenced so many bands, so many different genres of music. Because they dealt with dark subjects, it totally did not help them along the way. But you know, and when their albums were critically panned when they came out, but they were all successful. And now decades later, you see that their influence was huge. Kind of like the band The Misfits, where their influence was so huge, but at the time they were not, well, at least Black Sabbath was popular. But, you know, they just got nothing. They got no acclaim, no recognition, you know. Yeah. At least Black Sabbath is in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I think the holy metal trinity for me has always been Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, and, you know, Led Zeppelin. And it's always Led Zeppelin gets all the glory. Everybody talks about, you know, Led Zeppelin, Jimmy Page, Robert Plant, but not enough people talk about Deep Purple or Black Sabbath. And every bit is responsible for, you know, the growth and the birth of heavy metal as Led Zeppelin was. So,
and the only thing I would say is I take Zeppelin out of there. I put Priest in there because Rock'n'Rolla, I forget what year Rock'n'Rolla came out, but that was an early album.
Like 73, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I thought it was earlier than 73.
No. Purple and Sabbath had been putting out a few albums before they came out.
Yeah, I don't know. I just put Priest in there more than Zeppelin. I mean, Zeppelin definitely had an effect on it, but Priest had that sound and that look. I don't know, but I can hear what you're saying.
Deep Purple played off each other, and they were both pushing each other.
Yeah,
to be better. Deep Purple and Black Sabbath. That's what I think.
I agree.
Yeah,
totally.
All right, number 2,
Hand of Doom. I know that everybody's already talked about it. And Jeff, I think you hit the nail on the head. That type of Sabbath song really appeals to me, where it goes slow to heavy to dark to light. It's just an amazing song.
All right, my number 2. I don't know if anybody really likes this song, but I do. Jack the Stripper and Fairies Wear Boots. I just really, really like this song, and the production on this album is great. Yeah, I know it's one of their hits, and they still play it live or still played it live, but I just always have really liked the tune, and I think it's cool how it opens up with that little instrumental and then gets into Fairies Wear Boots, and I feel like the song gets heavier as it goes along, and it's just definitely always been a favorite of mine.
That song is about Ozzy had a run-in with a bunch of skinheads. I don't know if you guys heard that story, but I was watching a documentary, and he ran into a bunch of neo-Nazis that gave him a hard time, and he went back and wrote that song, Fairies Wear Boots.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of people, not a lot of people, I've heard people go, I don't like the song Fairies Wear Boots and whatever, but I don't know. It's always been a favorite of mine.
It's a killer song. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Aaron.
My number 2, title song, Heaven and Hell. This epic Ronnie James Dio. It's just an epic song, and his vocals on that, it's one of his best vocal performances he ever did. And just an epic, great, amazing song. And Heaven and Hell, number 2.
Do you need me to sing it again, Aaron?
Yeah, you're a good singer.
No, I won't. I did it once. Once is enough for one video, but I would. Don't threaten me with a good time. Okay. My number 2 track It's going to be Off Sabotage, Symptom of the Universe, best riff ever. God damn, that's such a killer riff. Love it. That always stuck out to me. Like, oh my God, I thought Sabbath was heavy. Because like I say, I had bought like other stuff up to this point, and then I played that track and I'm like, God, just blew me away. I love that track. And I had to rank that number 2 because it's just stuck with me and can't get enough of it. Just fantastic.
Love it.
Great one.
All right, so my number 1 is, to me, probably the scariest song of all time, and that is Black Sabbath, on Black Sabbath. I know that you already talked about it, but you're absolutely right. When he screams, "Oh God, help me!" Like, I remember being a kid being like, "What the hell is going on?" Like, it was scary. And I absolutely love it, and it paints the picture of this album cover. I always think about, imagine that kid that stumbled into a record store in the early 70s when this came out, no idea what it looked like, bought it because the album cover, the needle hits the record, and that's the first thing you hear is boom, boom. It's like, and that how Tony Iommi's guitar, it kind of like the string, it just leaves this effect, right? Like, I don't know, it lingers, if I'm making any sense whatsoever. But yeah, Black Sabbath, scary friggin' song. I absolutely love it. It's a classic.
Awesome.
Yeah, well, it's funny. It's the first song off their first album, and yet it still resonates today. And it's so, you could almost use that as like the soundtrack to your haunted house. It's so effective. I love that.
Yeah.
Sounds great on vinyl at the beginning too.
Oh my God, tremendous.
Amazing sounding. Great one.
All right, well, my number 1, surprise, surprise, it's Off of Sabotage. And it's Symptom of the Universe, Jeff. Yeah, I always go back to this song. Like you said, it's a killer riff. It's one of their heaviest riffs. I just always love this song. It just gets me going every time I freaking hear it. And the guitar tone on this album is heavy. And nobody put this in their top 10, but there's a song on here called Super Tsar, which got this really gritty, heavy guitar lick with like a choir behind it. And I don't know, they summoned some evil on this album. I mean, I know that they were experimenting, but the riffs are just heavy.
Yeah, they were channeling something for sure. But yeah, and Ozzy, another great vocal. I mean, he's howling on there. I mean, he totally is on fire on that track.
Yeah.
It's just so everybody, I think, shines on that track.
It's another riff that everybody copied.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think that's what JC had mentioned before. But yeah. So,
all right, Aaron.
Well, it's not the same as yours, so that's great. The Mob Rules title song.
Great song.
It's heavy, one of the heaviest Dio songs, and it reminds me of a Dio song, like from his solo band almost. And that's one of my favorite bands as well. And I just Dio is just a monster on it, and I always remember Jack Black singing that too. It's kind of funny when he was doing that, but yeah, Mob Rules. The lyrics are great. Amazing album cover too, and
yeah, I always tried to figure out what that cover was. It's still,
I don't know. It's strange though. I wish it was flipped over. But yeah, Mob Rules. Like I said, I'm a Dio guy, but I love Ozzy too. So at least we had a little different this time. We weren't all the same.
Yeah, no, I can respect that totally. All right, well, my number 1 is going to be off Volume 4. I'm going to go with Snowblind, and it's just a perfect example of how Tony Iommi could write such a melodic riff. And I feel like Tony Iommi is one of the most underrated composers in all of not just heavy metal, but rock and roll, because you've got that heavy riff, but he manages to make it sound so melodic because it just is kind of like, nah, 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 nah. And then in the chorus, he gets all, I just love it. I don't know. I've always loved that riff. It's always made such an impression on me. And it's almost like he was like the Johnny Marr of the heavy metal world. And he could craft just such a beautiful melody and riff that would just stick in your head. And, you know, it almost, some of his riffs give me goosebumps. He's just such a great riff writer. And that for me is one of my favorite riff that he's ever written. So it didn't appear, I don't, you know, I know it wasn't too high on anybody else's list, but I love it.
I love that song. It's a great one. And it's funny that you make the Johnny Marr comparison, because I was reading an interview with Springsteen and they are asking about his favorite guitarist, and he said Johnny Marr. And he said Johnny Marr writes these riffs that seem simple but are extremely difficult. And Iommi is one of those people that makes it seem so simple, but I doubt most people could pull it off. And like you said, like sometimes it's like a jazz influence. He's got a lot of different influences in his guitar work.
Yeah, and it's just memorable. I mean, it sticks with you. And I mean, everybody can name their favorite Tony Iommi riffs, and it's just gorgeous. You know, you think of, Black Sabbath, they were heavy and, you know, they kicked ass, but he also, his guitar playing was very beautiful, but in a heavy kind of way, as odd as that sounds. But
yeah, well, look at the instrumentals: Laguna Sunrise, Orchid,
Fluff,
Embryo, all that stuff. Yeah.
Great list, guys. Everybody, you know, there was some overlap, but I think we snuck in enough diversity that it was a very interesting list also. And, you know, the one thing we can agree on is Sabbath is one of the greatest bands of all time. And I don't care, you know, I don't like to pigeonhole them into, well, they were heavy metal. I mean, I'd put them up against any rock and roll act. 70s, 80s, 90s, you know, they're timeless, and they managed to change with the times. They managed to stay relevant through all the different eras. I mean, you think when they started in the early, you know, 1970, and they're still going strong in the 2000s, and they don't sound dated, they don't sound old, they don't sound irrelevant, they don't sound stale. I mean, they managed to, and that's a remarkable achievement. They managed to keep, you know, AC/DC is another band, I guess you could say, that managed to evolve and not, you know, sound out of step with the times. Through all the lineup changes, through all the eras, they still sound fresh. They still manage to, you know, keep the listener engaged, and they still put out great music over the course of, 50 years. So that's a no better testament to them than that. But any last thoughts, any last words on Black Sabbath?
I'm just going to say Sabbath will always be relevant, because every freaking 12-year-old, 13-year-old wants something that pisses their parents off. They want something that is scary and about death and everything. And Sabbath will always be there. And yeah, I mean, they're singing songs about pot and the devil, and I mean, kids are always going to be drawn to that sort of dark music and dark sound. So I think they're always going to be relevant. I think they're always going to be mentioned in, you know, as Zeppelin and Deep Purple and all these bands. They're sort of timeless bands. I mean, the Beatles and Black Sabbath are totally different, but it's almost like they can be put in the same category because they're timeless. Yeah, I mean, my kids now, they like Sabbath.
Yeah.
So does my stepkid. He does too.
Yeah.
I totally agree with what you guys said. And the one thing I want to say is that none of us mentioned War Pigs or Paranoid. But for those of you watching, like, I will admit that those are two of the greatest heavy metal songs ever written. It felt weird not putting them on my list just because of the influence they've had on music. You know, like War Pigs is still as relevant today as it ever was. And if you think about it at the time, you know, the record companies in America didn't even want to release it because the world was at such a boiling point, right? So they were like, we can't release this song, War Pigs. But they did, and it's a fabulous song. It's got one of the greatest guitar riffs. Paranoid was, hey, we don't have a single. They went out to a bar. They came back after having a few drinks. Iommi just started playing that riff, and they all joined in. And with that song Paranoid, you know, we have Metallica, we have Megadeth, we have Anthrax, we have Slayer, we have all these thrash metal bands. That, I think, is one of the, you know, the predecessors to speed metal. And not to mention tons of other bands. So it felt weird not putting it on the list. I tried to go honestly, like, well, you know, those songs are overplayed. I've heard them my whole life. I don't generally gravitate towards them. But I just want to give a shout out to those songs, because if I had a 10-year-old kid that was like, I want to get into Sabbath, I'd probably play them Paranoid, you know, because it's a killer friggin' song.
Yeah, no question.
Agreed.
Yeah.
It was enough that, you know, Johnny Lydon from the Sex Pistols admired that song, you know, and it was one of the few, you know, you could call one of the few tracks you could call of Black Sabbath that was punk rock, you know, almost, but it's just such a timeless track, a timeless riff. And yeah, I mean, that's the thing about Black Sabbath is they've stood the test of time, and they've never been irrelevant or old or out of, you know, fashion. So
except in the 80s.
Yeah. Yeah, they hit a low point.
Nobody put any songs from Forbidden on their list.
Yeah, Forbidden's not my favorite.
I mean, there's some good stuff off of Headless Cross. Headless Cross is a good one.
It is.
Think about this one, though, guys. Think about how, you know, Black Sabbath, think about that song Black Sabbath and that song Paranoid, how completely different they are. And they were on the first and second albums. And both were genre-defining songs. You could say, well, doom metal bands like Typo Negative or all these doom metal bands stemmed from this song Black Sabbath. And then you could say on their second album, Paranoid, all of these thrash metal bands or, you know, speed metal bands stem from that. And you could probably say the same thing for songs on Master of Reality and Four and Sabotage and all the way up the line. It's almost like every album they were helping create a new genre of metal. It's insane.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, this album, like you said, it covers doom metal. Doom metal's got to thank this album. Thrash metal's got to straight ahead, and heavy metal's got to.
Yep.
And even, you know, when Priest started to write more catchy type songs, like you were saying, Paranoid is a radio single. So it's almost like Sabbath was already doing that back in the day. They were already taking a heavy metal song and making it appropriate for the radio. And then Priest sort of followed suit with Breaking the Law and all that kind of stuff. So Paranoid was like one of those first heavy metal radio friendly songs.
And in the middle of that album Paranoid, they have Planet Caravan, which is like a total acoustic, psychedelic, you know, crazy song. Like they took so many chances to put a song like that in the middle of a hard rock album. You know, I just give them all the credit in the world.
Yeah, then they go into Electric Funeral and then Hand of Doom and then Rat Salad, the instrumental, and then they end with Fairies Wear Boots. I mean, that's why this album is, for a lot of people, considered the best Black Sabbath album.
Yeah.
No question. Well, thank you, everybody, for your list. Had a great time, as always. And again, make sure that you are checking out JC's channel, check out Chris's channel, and absolutely make sure you check out Aaron's channel. If you're not already subscribed, please make sure you subscribe to all these gentlemen's channels, because you will not be disappointed. Again, that was the JC from the Flip Side Vinyl Community, Chris Profi, Musically Obsessed, and Aaron Mutha Alamere. You guys are the best. You are my best friends in the VC group hug. No, I'm just kidding.
People are probably getting sick of seeing our mugs on. You know,
that may be, but you know, we're here to provide a public service. So I hope everybody's enjoyed this video, and thank all you guys for joining in. And we're going to cut out right now, but we're going to be talking about what is our next video going to be? What topic are we going to talk about? Thank you, everybody.
Adios.